you know, we still will struggle, but what, we really wanna do is actually, we had 39 falls, we actually wanna get that number into like a single digit. That would be the plan. All right? So background information, I'm not sure that you would be aware of, is that on the federal level, so you know how we have our federal surveys that come through, the state surveys coming through and all that, the federal level, they are passing a law that the facilities are to be alarm-free in 2016. There are already about 5 states that are alarm-free. That was new information to me. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was coming our way. Currently, does anyone know how many residents we have in the building that have alarms? 2. All right, so we're already moving in the right direction. We already have kind of like an attitude of no alarms, and so we're already working in the right direction towards that. We have to take a look at why we made the decisions that we have made. And we say that it's based on some kind of fact. Well, there are 3 different levels of fact, and we have them outlined here. Empirical fact is actually based on scientific studies. Whimsical fact is actually what feels good.
Can I stand here?
And I will go back to 1993 when residents were still tied to their wheelchairs. They were in posy vests, all right? They were tied to bed. They were tied onto the toilets, all right? That was what the operation looked like back then. When we had to start studying and looking at this person's fall history, we realized that the person is in a posy vest because they fell 3 years ago. You know, it's like it hadn't been revisited. We didn't do that then, you know? But keeping that person safe and in that vest made us feel good. And so that information was truly based on whimsy at that point. We'd have to say that that was whimsical fact. And then there's experiential, and that's what we have experienced in the past. And now, a lot of what we're doing now with our falls is that we've experienced. We know that this worked for this person, you know, let's try that approach. All right, so we're using what what we've experienced, and a lot of our decision is based on our experiences, which is a valid reason. It's a valid decision. It's just I'm pointing out there's 3 different types of facts or ways to come about that decision. We just need to investigate and look at what our reasons for doing what we do and what they're based on, and see whether or not we can do better. There's a two-tiered approach, and again, we do both of these already, but we're looking to see where can we improve. There's a proactive where you're trying to prevent falls, and there's a reactive, which is a post-fall action. All right, what's the next one? Thank you. Does anybody know this Maya Angelou?
Sure.
Great lady, very insightful. This was one of her many quotes. I did then what I knew then. When I knew better, I did better. And we're looking at, again, our decision. We made decisions. We treat residents a certain way because it's based on our experience, our whimsy, or our empirical knowledge. As we learn new things, we apply new things. And we have to learn to let go of what we did in the past, because we were doing the best we could at the time with the knowledge that we had. And then as new knowledge comes to us, we can move forward. Case in point, the presenter for this fall went to a conference, and it was on sleep fragmentation. And she was like, as a nurse, I want to know what this is all about. So she goes and sits in on this conference, and the room is full of people from the military. Why do you suppose that would be?
They're up all the time.
They're up all the time.
Okay, well, that's true,
Sure.
they are.
I've worked many 24
Right.
hours.
And our soldiers have to
Sleep when you
learn to
can.
sleep in shifts, right? What else? Why else would they be there learning about sleep fragmentation and its effect on our bodies? Why would the military be there?
Well, they have to be able to operate. They gotta have the rest, one way or another.
They do. What about, let's think evilly.
Like if they were
know what
tortured,
the
they
body
would have
can
to know how to
torture.
deal with sleep deprivation.
How
Correct.
about when we apply that torture to others? Yes, you know, it's used as torture device, as a weapon, all right?
And there's lots of studies that NASA, the VA have done on the matter. And that's what this whole presentation was about, that this woman went to. And she was like, oh my gosh, we're waking our residents up every 2 hours. We're, slapping some water on them, washing them up, getting them clean, and then roll them over and say, now go back to sleep, don't move. And you know yourself, when you get up in the middle of the night, those of you that are over 50, when you get up in the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom, you don't always go right back to sleep. Sometimes you have to, fall back asleep. So.
And even, our residents share a room, so how many times do you go in to work with the resident in the other bed and don't mean to disturb the sleep of the person in the same room, but it's going to happen by default, So throughout anybody's rest, we're waking them up, we're disturbing their sleep, we're fragmenting their sleep patterns. And if you know that our REM sleep cycles, the rapid eye movement, we need to sleep X number of hours for our body to repair itself. And we need at least 3 hours of sleep for that mental, cognitive mood to improve, all right? And we're waking everybody up every 2 hours. We're interrupting the health cycle and the mood and cognitive cycle of sleep, all right? So it's like, okay, didn't know that. Never really applied it.
Right.
I mean, we knew REM cycles of sleep and all that, but have we really applied it to our business practices here? And it's like, okay, let's take a look at that and see if we can't do better.
So let's talk about emissions. We get some of those, about 200 a year. How many, I don't know, anybody got any know the number for me? I don't know, it's a lot. So when somebody comes in, we do an assessment. And most of our assessments, if we did one on each other right now, we would have some risk. Somebody might have a balance issue, somebody might have a toileting issue, somebody might have a cognitive issue. And so most residents will fall into to be at risk. We need to identify what each individual's risk factor is, because they're going to be varied across, the continuum. So we want to make sure that we know what each person's risks are. We need to determine what predisposing causes.
Debbie Ubal, please call extension 200, Debbie 200.
What predisposing causes and triggers are. And some of those things are things like loud thunderstorms at night can be a trigger to wake people up. And so then they might want to run and hide because they may have lived through a traumatic time frame, and that's what they did. When they heard loud noises, they ran, they dove under the bed. There was, sirens going off. Has anybody ever heard the door alarms going off at night when a resident, or any time?
You ever been in a hotel with the fire alarm goes off?
Yes, yeah. So, that could be a trigger, for some of our residents. So we need to think about all of those kinds of things. We need to make sure that each intervention is individualized. What works for me isn't going to work for Kelly and probably isn't going to work for Josh. So we need to make sure that it's individualized and suits that person. Not just because we've always done it for this kind of fall, but because it's right for each person. We need to determine the side of the bed the resident gets out of. Why do you think that is? Do you get out of the same side of the bed every day?
Yep.
It's habit. It's habit.
No.
And so when you go to a hotel and you got a choice of 2 beds, which side do you get in? Which bed do you choose? The one that's closest to the bathroom, because that's where your bedroom is and that's how it normally is. But if it's heading the other direction, forget it. I'm going to the one that's heading in the right direction because I can't sleep north. I have to sleep south. Design the room. So we're going to go work on designing the room for the individuals. So you're probably going to see some different changes, different room configurations, and hopefully as a team we'll be able to get to that point. Does that make sense?
And a lot of times we wait till we're looking at putting somebody on pause to truly change the person's layout in their bedrooms, in their rooms, where we move beds around, move their nightstand out, we put yellow signs on the bathroom door or whatever. We really try to make it as safe as possible, create color contrast in the room so that visually they can see where they're going. After fall, we've put lights underneath somebody's bed so that their bed actually glowed in the dark. But we've done that as interventions after falls. We're looking at, on admission, what does this person need in their room to make it work for them? And that way, you're being more proactive instead of reactive. So one thing, like when somebody comes in new to the room, they get wheeled in, they may be getting right into bed, or they sit in their bedside chair or in their wheelchair. Here's your call light, and
Somebody will be here to see you soon. And then OT comes in and sees them, and then they leave, and then PT comes and sees them, and then nursing comes and sees them, and then
the
housekeeping needs to clean the
nutritionist
room,
and-
and then the nutritionist comes. So there's a lot of different people, and you're in and out of that room at all the time. And so we wanna make sure that we're repeatedly, at least for the first couple days, making sure the resident has the stuff they need and know how to access the system. Know how to call for assistance, know how the phone system works, if they wanted a phone, or if they have a phone, or know what the lunch times are, or the meal times are. I mean, that's all kind of stuff, we all wanna know that when we go to a seminar. Okay, what's our first break? That's the first thing we look at. The correct height of the bed, we found out that that's really important. Now, we've got all different types of beds, right? We've got low beds. If somebody fell out of bed 3 times, they're getting a low bed, right? We're really defeating the purpose. We want them to be successful, we wanna give them the best opportunity that we can. So one of the things that we have to make sure is that they're at a 90-90-90. So Kelly, demonstrate for us a 90-90-90,
hip,
if you will.
90 degrees at the hip, 90 degrees at the knee, and 90 degrees at the ankle. All right, so for everybody in different statures, that's going to be a different height of the bed. And so we're into this, the bed's in the locked position when it's all the way down, touching the floor, you know? And then some of you know that the therapists will go in there and we raise that bed up, put it against the wall, because it's easier for somebody to get in and out of the bed if the bed's raised up, all right? And we also know that if we just raise that bed up just a little bit more than 90, you're also improving the chances of that person getting up out of the bed without the struggle, all right? You don't have to lift them up out of the bed, they can actually participate in the transfer by raising them up, all right? But the most successful position is achieving that 90-90-90. The bed's too low, they're gonna try and get out of the bed, and they're just forcefully going to keep propelling themselves forward until they, and then their momentum just keeps going and takes them to the floor, all right? So we gave them a low bed, we actually caused another problem, all right? So yeah, if they roll out of the bed, it's a gentler fall. If they're trying to exit the bed, we've just probably increased their chances of getting injured trying to get out of the bed, all right? And then those of us who might be on the short side, the standard bed could be too high for them, and it's actually feet aren't touching the floor, or it creates a little bit of they're gonna slide off the edge of the bed, all right? So in that case, you want to get that bed that's a low bed and actually bring it up so it's the correct height for that person. All right. Contrast, I mentioned before, yellow is a good color to use for visualization. If you walk into any one of the resident bathrooms, what color are the walls?
White,
What color's the
Off-white.
toilet?
off-white,
What's the color's the floor?
white,
Squeeze your eyes
gray
shut.
spots.
Squeeze your eyes just so you can see a little bit. It gets all fuzzy, it gets all dark. Can you see the things, you look across, I can see that white shirt over there really well. But that black shirt, I can't see so well, because it kind of blends in. So that's kind of what people are looking at. They have cataracts, they have glaucoma, they might have macular degeneration. All those things affect what you can actually see. So that's why contrast is good in the bathroom. We always want to make sure your footwear is appropriate, and yes, those are bunny slippers. And flip-flops, yes, Denise, you can wear your flip-flops.
If they're right for you, then they're the right choice.
So one of the things that we do is a root cause analysis of all of our falls. And you're thinking, well, that sounds really complicated. It is to an extent, but there's information that all of you, because this is a team effort, it is not a nursing department thing, it is not a therapy thing. We all have to work together for the resident to find what the root cause of this is. This will help us to transfer from a reaction like, oh my God, they fell out of bed, let's put side rails on and let's restrain them, to a new culture of like, where was she going? Why was she getting up? Why? That's the question. It helps us to have performance improvement, and we need to eliminate problems are best solved by eliminating and correcting root causes as opposed to addressing the obvious symptoms with scattergun approaches. Let's see if it sticks. Anybody that's ever been in a morning huddle will say, okay, let's try a low bed. Okay, bye. We'll move on to the next one. We really didn't stop to think, is that low bed truly going to help this resident be better? So that's part of what happened, just arrow. Yep. So there's 3 causes. We wanna know what happened. We wanna look for clues and evidence. We're gonna do examinations and interviews and assessments. And sometimes our first reaction is, oh my God, there's somebody on the floor, let's get them up. Right? Would you agree with that statement? Anybody? Yep. It's not such a good idea. We need to take a moment, we need to look at the scene, we need to figure out what happened. What is the scene telling us? When we went to this seminar, she showed us 3 or 4 scenarios and slides, and she's like, okay, what do you think happened here? And everybody had their opinion about what could have happened and and then she would tell us what actually happened. Some of us were right, some of us were wrong, but it was interesting to see a group of 50 people come up with 10 different ideas as to what could have happened in this scenario. So we want to look at that. Why did it happen? What conditions were allowed to exist? What's different this time with that person? We're going to implement a corrective action so that we can help them move along. So I think the next slide talks about the clues and the evidence. Okay. When you first are in the room, look, listen, smell, touch, because that tells you a lot of things, right? What can it tell you?
Was the floor wet?
Was the floor wet? Yep, that's a look. It could
If
be
they
a
were-
smell.
If they were incontinent,
Tells you if they're incontinent,
Which direction they fell?
which direction they fell.
So where, like, they were either headed to or coming from a certain place?
We handed out the little pink pieces of paper, and those are the 10 questions. Well, they're on the next slide, so hold on, go back. Oh, go back just a second. Let me just finish this one. We're gonna look at the position of the resident in the surrounding environment and operational conditions. One of the things I don't think we take time to look at is what's happening around us. Was there noise out in the hall? Was there a med cart going over the bump here on West Wing, causing a big poof? Because Priscilla's always good about that. And did that scare, the resident in room 5 because it made a loud noise, and so, they were running to hide. Silly, but follow my train there. Don't move anything. Let's look at the area. We want to know where the walkers are. We want to know where the chair is, where the wheelchair is, where their clothes are. We want to know all those kinds of things. And then the quarterly drill, one of the things that this woman did is every administrator in her 50-some buildings on a quarterly basis would hold a drill for a fallen resident. And she would have a piece of paper, and she would lie down on the floor, they would lay down on the floor, and Josh would be walking by, and I'd hand Josh the paper, and he'd go. And then what they're looking for is to make sure that you're asking the 10 questions. So let's go to the 10 questions. So obviously we want to make sure that the resident's okay. So that's a simple question. Ask us, are you okay? So that's an easy question. Ask residents what they were doing just before the fall. Can all of our residents tell us exactly what they were doing before the fall?
No.
No. Can they tell us something? They might say something like kitty, kitty, kitty. Okay? This is, huh?
Tick, tick, tick.
Tick, 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 yep. That means something to them. Whatever they're at, wherever they're at in their dementia, that means something to them. I'll get back to kitty, kitty after we're done. Ask resident what was different this time. Maybe they can tell you, maybe they can't. Maybe they'll say more kitty, kitty, kitty. I don't know, maybe they'll say too many kitty, kitty, I don't know. What was different this time? Why does George successfully transfer sometimes and not other times? I don't know. We don't know that answer. What was the position of the resident? Be specific, legs, arms, head, direction, where they're at. What was the surrounding area like? Was it changing? What's the time frame? I kind of gave it away. What's the time frame the most amount of falls occur in our building? Anybody? Shift change, which shift?
Afternoon.
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay, you've been there before. You paid attention. You must have heard this. No, just kidding. You have a lot of those falls that have occurred in that time frame. 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That's when the most number of falls occur in this building. Why? Anybody have any great ideas? Because we're still trying to figure it out. So see me later if you do, because I know you don't appreciate it. What was the floor like? Is the floor wet? Is it slippery? Is it sticky? We've had all those kinds of things happen. What was the resident wearing? Shoes, socks, clothing? Anybody remember the resident that used to be on East Wing, and she had a satiny nightgown she wore every night for bed. She was only about this tall. And she would slide off the edge of the bed all the time. And why? Because those little shiny nightgowns are pretty slippery on those sheets.
Is it Phyllis Parker?
Nope.
Nope, Annie Gifford.
Oh.
I knew when I said the name, most of you would remember her. But that was, I mean, did it make a difference? Annie used to have a zillion falls. She was our George Huntington at East Wing at one point. And so, you know, we stopped that. Did it stop some of the falls? Maybe. Did it? I'm sure it didn't cure it. But that was just something that you look at. Were they using their assistive device? You know, if the walker's over by the front, the closet door, and they're by the bathroom door, clearly they probably were not using their walker. Would you agree with that statement? So why? You know, a lot of times you say, put the walker at the end of the bed so they can't reach it, because we don't want them to be successful. But maybe we need to offer them the walker so that they can be successful, because there are sometimes that they are successful. Do they have their glasses and hearing aids in? And where were they at the time of the fall? Who was in the area when the resident fell? Anybody here walk down the hall? Come on, you walk down the hall.
Yeah, I was listening.
Okay. When you're out and about, what I'm asking everybody to do is to use the swivel method. Check the rooms as you're going down. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's good for your range of motion, right? Check and see, because you might see somebody on the move. So you might say, oh geez, you know, Nancy's legs are over the edge of the bed. Maybe I should stop and see if I can get her to put them back in. And then I should go tell somebody. Or maybe Nancy's already sitting on the edge of the bed and it's not a good idea to leave her there. So stay with her until somebody comes along. You can holler, you can get help, you can project your voice probably a lot better. You probably have your cell phone in your pocket. Call the facility and ask for the wig. I'm not lying. So, maintenance man, yeah. So what's the next one? Oh, okay. So after you found a resident, I'll pick on dietary, because you're walking down the hall and yep, there's somebody on the floor. So you stayed with the resident. You've started asking those 10 questions immediately. Are you okay? By the time somebody gets there, you can say to one of the nursing staff, yes, she's complaining of right hip pain, or no, you know, she's not talking. All she keeps saying is kitty. We want people to get together and just kind of go over those 10 questions. Do we have all the answers? Let's fill out the incident report then and there. It doesn't take long if we do it together as a team. Reenact the fall. Make sure that we're trying to figure out how did this happen, because they've been in some pretty weird, I've seen residents that have never moved in their entire time here, found kneeling at their bedside. I do not know how that happened. I have never figured it out. It has happened. Get the incident report done. The next one. Okay, so we always have to do a care plan change whenever there's a fall. And they suggest that we kind of focus on the 4 Ps, which is the position. Are they comfortable? Are they restless? Are they agitated? And that's one of the things that you're going to say, you know, I was sweeping, I was mopping the floor, and, you know, Nancy was really, you know, switching in her chair. She didn't look comfortable at all. You know, I tried to see if I could get her something, but nope, she was on the move. But nobody knew. You didn't tell anybody. So Nancy just switched herself right out onto the floor because she was uncomfortable. Whereas if you would have said, I saw that she was uncomfortable in the chair, perhaps somebody could have attended to her. If a housekeeper came to one of you guys, I'm pointing to you guys over there, and said, you know, Nancy's switching around in her chair, maybe she's wet, maybe she's got to do something, you're going to go check on her, right?
Yeah.
You're going to figure this out. So do they need to be pottied? Are there other personal needs that they need to have attended to? Does the resident appear to be in pain? They might be. Try to get them an intervention. What's the placement of their personal items? Where is the bedside table in every room? If this is the head of your bed, you're laying in bed, this is your head, where's that bedside stand?
Oh, the nightstand?
Yeah,
Right by your head?
right by my head. Are the drawers facing me?
No.
Because if this is my bedside stand, then I have to do this in order to get in those drawers. So if I need my comb, how am I going to get to that? Oh, did I tell you that I had a stroke on this side and I can't get to it? So I'm gonna roll over and I'm gonna try to reach that, next thing I know, I'm gonna be on my nose. So we might wanna place the bedside stand differently so that they can open the drawer. So if Josh was turned facing me, that would be easier, I could get in there, right? And we've done that, some of that in some of our rooms, but not a lot of them.
Right.
Kelly's gonna dance now, tell us the next steps.
Yeah. This is where we were talking about sleep fragmentation earlier. We need to figure out how we can improve the sleep quality for our residents. What can we do to get them to be able to sleep for longer periods of time during the night, I want to say. All right, so have we made great strides in there? Absolutely. We've gone from having people open to air, laying on
Blue
plastic
chucks,
coated,
blue plastic
coated
chucks.
all right, to cloth ones, to sort of like a cloth diaper, which we know just the water just sat there, they sat in that water if they, you know, were incontinent until the next time somebody came to change them. So their comfort level and their interruption in sleep was constant. Now we've moved to the briefs. They're very much more absorbent. We know with our own children, you put them in a diaper and they can make it through the night because they're comfortable, all right? Yes, are they soiled when you wake them up in the morning? Yes, but they were comfortable. They'll let you know if they're not. So our elderly people, same thing, they're in the briefs. They can sleep longer periods of time before needing to be changed. We have to play a balance between what their skin condition is like, what their needs are, you know, can their meds be rescheduled so we don't have to give them one at midnight? You know, there are things that we can do to improve the quality of a person's sleep. Part of that, I said, is keeping them to sleep through the night, and that is keep them awake and engaged during the day so that they can sleep at night, you know? And somebody was saying that their loved one at an adult care facility, their pattern was get up and get ready to go down to breakfast, go to breakfast, come back to the room, go to bed. Get up for the next meal, go have their meal, come back, go to bed. I mean, just no way is this person gonna sleep through the night if they're sleeping all through the day too. That's not.
So we handed out to you, you have some education pamphlets there. There's the family education pamphlet, and these are just mock-ups, so please don't take them with you because they're not the end product. But what it does is it addresses fall prevention and what our plan is and how we're going to work together as a team to reduce the number of falls and to keep your family member from falling. If you have a look at it and you think, gosh, this should be included, come see Kelly or I. We'd be more than happy to adjust or explain why we wrote what we wrote. This was also, we stole this from this in-service, and I just admit it. And they said we could, so that's okay. Yes, we have full permission. The other thing is the alarm reduction. We are very committed to reducing the number of alarms that we have in our building. We have to, did you do that already?
Yes.
You talked about that?
Mm-hmm.
So we obviously don't want to have more alarms, and as attrition goes, we'll get rid of these alarms. But this explains why alarms aren't the answer. And, you know, we're going to provide maps to Iowa, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
why don't you finish this slide?
Okay, Mahatma Gandhi, another guy with a lot of great ideas. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they attack you, then you win. So as we introduce new ideas, we get nervous, we're not sure we want to be a part of it, we're not sure it's going to work, all right? We start to push back a little because of our comfort level, again, our whimsy, this doesn't feel right. But then we have to learn that we're going to work together, we'll work these things out. Eventually, we will get to the point where we will win, all right? We'll accomplish this goal, our residents will be better off for it. So remember, the use of an alarm is not a fall prevention, it's not really anything. If you're working 11 to 7 in this building and there are only 4 people on duty, and 2 of us, or they're all in a resident room, somebody down the hall, their alarm goes off, they can't leave the resident they're with if they're in the middle of a transfer, the bed's up in the air because they were doing a change. that person is still gonna exit their bed, they're still gonna be on the floor by the time they get to them, all right? Alarm did not prevent